This episode 2024. It's our final tips and tricks of the year.
Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show. Home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros.
Thanks for listening to another edition of the Handyman Pros Radio Show, where our goal is to help save you time, money, and aggravation. This edition's entitled 2024 Final Tips and Tricks. Doesn't mean we're never doing tips and tricks again. We're just not doing it again in 2024. That's it. So to help me explain, I'm here with my ever cheerful co-host and old buddy Johnny, Mr. Tips and Tricks himself. We were just talking about some tips and tricks offline, but we can talk about those more if you want. Johnny, anything been going on this week?
Yeah, so I've been over at a neighbor's house and fixing some wallboard in the ceiling. The plumbers had to take their basement ceiling apart to get up in there.
Folks, I just have to explain this. When you hire, once again, we're going to explain this over and over and over again. When you hire an electrician and you hire a plumber, and I don't care who they are, and I'm not bagging on plumbers or electricians, but understand if they're going to cut the drywall, and they're probably not going to fix it.
Yeah, they won't. They won't.
A lot for someone to come in money. Allotment in money for somebody to come in and fix your drywall and repaint if you have to, and understand that this is not going to be inexpensive, because it's not inexpensive. Drywall repairs are as time consuming as hanging new drywall, virtually, not quite, but it takes a long time to do it right. And unless you're good, and if you want, we have several shows on doing drywall, so you might want to listen to those, but understand they're not going to fix it. And I hate it. It drives me crazy, because you're going to add another $500+ to the job that the electrician or plumber says.
It's kind of one of those things that you really don't think about, but they're not going to fix that. And so the job's not going to be done. When the plumber, the electrician leaves, I mean, they're just not they're not drywall guys, nor that so on and so forth. And that's just the way it is. But I think, excuse me, but I think everybody has to, just kind of understand that if you have work and they say, hey man, I gotta get behind the wall. Well, you know what? That's on you at this point. So you just got to add that in.
Right. So anyway, that's a
it's a whole nother thing.
that's a tip and trick that we really weren't adding. We weren't supposed to talk about, but we added it in anyway. So there you go. All right. Before we get started, please like and subscribe our channel. It helps the algorithms do its magic things, and helps other people like you who are looking for, tips and tricks on home maintenance and repair and construction and stuff like that. Find us. So there we go with that. All right, Johnny. So we did our initial tip, which we didn't mean to do, but on hiring plumbers and electricians, and with the understanding that it's going to cost you more than you think it is, because you're going to have drywall repairs. So that's always a point. We'll probably make that about 72,000 times in the next year. But anyway, it is what it is. So I was reading this morning, I was going through 52 things that somebody learned online, and it was just one of those things that caught my attention. I always read this stuff because I find it fascinating, but this had to do with table saw safety, Johnny. Table saw safety, right? In the United States.
I'm sure the emergency rooms are filled with this.
The number here kind of scared me. So this is why we brought this into this show. In the U.S., table saws are responsible for around 4,300 amputations per year. All other products are responsible for 3,600 amputations per year combined. Wow.
Yeah.
And I don't know anything about it, Johnny.
Yeah.
Folks, if you're watching YouTube.
It's every time I operate a table saw, I'm very cautious and leery. Even as many hours as I've spent behind one of these things. And that goes for when I used to be in the machinist, and just using
same thing.
band saws.
Ooh, that's another one. Yikes.
Yeah. So it's all kinds of things, but you have to be real careful. And that statistic is that's pretty sobering.
It's very sobering. That's a lot. That's really a lot. I mean,
yeah. And when you say amputations, that's not like, I got to amputate something because I have to. It's an unnecessary amputation.
It was amputated without your knowledge, usually.
That's
by the
losing
time
fingers,
go, oh
hands.
My God, there goes my
arms.
finger, is what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, and what I think the other sobering response is that 3,600 additional amputations from all other tools combined. That's really scary to me. So the point being is be very, 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 very careful when using a table saw. And John, you brought this up when I first showed you this statistic. That doesn't include non-amputation injuries from table saws. Yeah, and you said you had a friend who had a kickback and it broke his arm.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know that stuff happens.
You can go. I mean, it'll tear you up. Go blind. It'll puncture you. It's all kinds of stuff. So you have to be very careful. And I'm not going to. I'm going to go into all the safety tips here on table saws. But if you have warp boards and all kinds of stuff you're trying to put through a table saw, always use a push stick and all kinds of stuff. Be real careful. Don't take the guards off. Don't
take the guards off. Oh my God!
Or the anti-kickback devices. I know they're pain in the ass sometimes, and you want to use the saws. Like you're going to shape the wood. Don't do it.
No.
Just use something else. Just don't get lazy, because that's when the accidents happen, and don't use them when you're tired either. I mean, if you're feeling like you're getting a little sloppy. Just turn them off, because all it takes is you to, trip on your own shoelace and go into that thing, so.
Johnny had another tip. He told me this in the pre-show, but I'm going to throw it out there right now. Don't ever put one on the ground. He said, because you can fall into it. I never really thought about it, but that's a true statement. You fall on that thing, man, it'll rip you up like so fast. And it happens so fast. It's so fast that you can't. Anyway. All right. That's tip number one.
That's an amputated head.
No comment on whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, and it depends on the person.
There's a lot of people with amputated heads walking. So I think some of the things to and this goes along with your next point here too. So carry on. I'll let you.
Well, I mean, this comes from a story of I was actually on a job site, and I was using my circular saw. And just my cordless circular saw, and I had used it days before to actually trim the shingles off my shed roof, right? So I was trying to make a good straight line, and it happened to be a long line, and my knife wasn't doing it, so I was like, I need to speed this process up, and so I used the circular saw. And I knew once I got done with it, I was going to need a new blade, because shingles are not how do we want to say it, saw blade friendly. Let's just leave it at that. But I changed out the circular saw blade, and I actually bought two of them. And this is going to air in December, which we know, and I happen to get two for $12, right, brother?
It's a game changer, isn't it?
What a game changer! My saw goes through wood like butter now. I was like, holy smokes! I should have done this 6 months ago. I didn't even realize it. And not only is the tool working hard, I get better cuts and all that kind of good groovy stuff. So I tell that story because you don't realize when it's dull, I think sometimes, and so sometimes maybe it's just worth taking the time to do it. I know I do sharpen. I'm doing a job right now where I'm clearing a lot of brush, and I sharpen chainsaws. I always tend to sharpen every time I use them, especially when I'm clearing brush, because I'm cutting down on the ground, and I have learned that
if you hit the ground with a chainsaw, you're done.
You dull it up very quickly. And so I've known that forever, and I've known that about circular saws, but I just didn't realize that. I don't cut nails and stuff with my circular saw, very rarely cut nails with my circular saw, but it was sufficiently dull. So when I changed the blades out, I noticed a huge difference. And I will say this, John, and I know you know this already, and probably most people do, but my reciprocating saw blades, I change all the time because they dull out very quickly comparatively. Now I use them mostly for demolition. So, when I'm using a reciprocating saw blade, I'm cognizant of the fact I'm cutting nails and I'm cutting screws and I'm cutting all kinds of things, particularly on doors and windows and stuff. But be that as it may, I know those need to be replaced very regularly. But circular saw blades, I think not quite so much, but I changed my opinion.
Yeah, and this might be this is a good tip to just say, hey guys, if you haven't thought about it recently, change the blade.
Yeah,
because the blade. It does sneak up on you. It sneaks up on you, and you can't believe how quickly they can dull.
Yeah, and it makes a huge difference in just the way the saw tracks and the way it's
safer, the whole bit.
And literally, in my case, I could hear it.
Yeah,
I could hear the difference, and that was what was shocking. It was like, wow, that's running so much cleaner, So anyway, just thought we'd throw that one out there,
And Larry's there burning his way through the wood with the old blade.
Yeah. Folks, if smoke's coming off the saw blade, it's time to change the saw blade.
Yeah, true.
God, if I can't tell you how many times I've seen that. Not me.
Start a fire at the work site.
Why does the end of the wood black? I don't get it. Anyway, be that as it may, I came upon an article on ladder safety, and I thought, oh, we should do a whole show. And then as we got into this, I thought, no, let's not, because I'm just going to go through some do's and don'ts on ladder safety, right? But I wanted to start off with this. According to the U.S. Consumer Safety Product, an estimated 500,000 people are treated for ladder accidents each year in the U.S., with 300 deaths. And here's a big shocker. People over the age of 65 are 80% more likely than younger people to visit the emergency room because of a ladder fall. Big surprise there. Johnny and I don't do ladders now.
I don't really like to get up on ladders anymore. That's my tip of the day.
Yeah. I don't bounce.
Ladder safety, don't get up on one.
Yeah, that's the safest way. Don't use one. Right.
But if you do, there are a couple of things that you need to keep in mind.
Go through the do's, Johnny. What should you do when you're doing it, when you're going to do a ladder?
Well, one of the things that we've got, you and I both have the same ladder, and they're pretty heavy duty ladders. And I will say that does make it makes a big difference. Right. Don't get up on cheap ladders, and I've got a cheap ladder that I used to get up about 3 steps on, and I won't go above it on this thing, but I got to get rid of it. It's just awful. But use the right ladder for the right job.
Yeah, the right ladder, and remember, they're all weight rated. So when it says
one of the things, especially extension ladders, where the biggest accidents happen on extension ladders is going from that transition of the 2 steps to the 1 step.
To the single step. Yep.
And that's where a lot of people trip. So when you're coming down a ladder on an extension ladder, you got to be very careful in placing your feet on that thing.
Yep.
Because all it takes is one slip, and if you're not hanging on properly, you're done.
Keep going. What's the next one, Johnny?
Well,
inspect the ladder before
exactly.
Use, right?
And listen, I do that. It's kind of funny that you come across this, because I rebuilt my extension ladder.
Yep.
And I put new hooks in it. I put new catches in it. I put new hardware on it.
New rope. New pulleys.
New rope, new pulleys, the whole thing. It was just time to do that stuff.
Yep.
And I don't know what motivated me to do it. It was a nice day out, and I had the ladder out, and I'm like, this is
I'm
bad.
looking at a ticking time bomb. That's what you said.
That's right. Right. The fuse has been lit here. Yeah. So let's take care of that. But really inspect the ladder, no matter what ladder it is.
Yeah, I don't care. It doesn't matter.
And if you're going to use one of these new multi ladders, make sure that they're hooked into itself properly when you extend it.
Yes. Make sure the however it attaches. Ours happen to slide into the other portion of the ladder. Make sure they're in 100%
those ladders. They're Warners.
Warners, yeah.
Yeah. So just make sure that the pins are properly placed in there, so you don't get up on this thing and all of a sudden it lets loose.
Yeah, one side goes and you're not in a good position because you're in a place. So the next tip on the ladder safety, and this sounds simple, and yet it's not. Place the ladder on firm, level ground. And I'm going to say the key word there is firm. So if you step up on that ladder and you feel one side sink, get something under it. Meaning meaning something to extend the platform out. It can be a piece of plywood, it can be whatever. It can be something, expand the area, make sure it doesn't sink, because grounded can be soft, especially on some of these construction sites. It can be just loose. If the dirt's loose, and folks, we talk about this all the time because Johnny and I are airplane guys. Johnny, it's called, what's it called? Moment, right?
Yeah.
And moment, folks, for your information, is the farther out you get on something, you increase the moment at the farther end. It's used in wing spars and things like that, but you increase it exponentially. And by the time you get way out, like 24 feet out at the base,
it's
you're
just
something like,
the easiest.
I don't know.
Yeah, the easiest way to
huge.
think about it. The easiest way to think about it is hold a brick next to your chest versus hold it at arm's length.
Yep,
gets a lot heavier at arm's length. So, you get pretty far out on things. You are, you're testing some physics.
It's physics, folks. It's nothing more than physics. So keep it on firm level ground. We know that sounds simple, but every day people don't do that. Here's another one. Use tool belts or pockets, not your hands, to carry items up the ladder. Bring heavy items up with a bucket or a rope system. And the reason for that is so that you can keep your hands on the ladders. Now, I have a caution on this because this has actually happened to me. I usually wear a tool belt when I'm doing a lot of things, especially say I've got to keep a lot of screws and nails and stuff in my belt. Be careful that the tool belt does not catch on the ladder, because it can cause you a different set of problems. Now, if you turn it around and you wear it on your back and you're going up the ladder facewards, that's okay. But if you're keeping it in the front, my tool belt sits in the front, and I've actually had it catch the ladder, and I'm like cursing.
Yeah,
I'm not going to lie, because it's caught. And then I'm like, damn it, I'm up, this is not the time that I need this SOB catching. So just be careful. But the point is that if you got heavy items, you need to keep your hands on the ladder. That's the bottom line. So keep your hands on the ladder.
I think it comes down to this, kind of picture the whole thing before you start doing it.
Sure.
Every little item what could go wrong.
Right.
as I'm climbing up this thing, know.
And the next two are basically extensions of what we just said. Always face the ladder and maintain 3 points of contact as you climb. And the other one is keep your belly button between the rails of the ladder at all times while working. That's a pretty good one when you think about it. So don't be reaching way out, right? Keep your belly button.
I don't know how guys do it. I mean, I see guys that are up 30, 40 feet. And they're just I'm like, I don't know how they're doing it. I really don't.
Mine are not that big anymore.
No. No. That's
so those are the do's. What are the don'ts? Don't use a ladder that any parts are slippery or missing, or make sure they're clean, make sure they're not broken. All that same thing basically, right? This one always amazes me, and you see this all the time. Never use a metal ladder near power lines. Yeah, I don't understand why.
There's lots of stories about that. Not then the outcomes aren't good.
Yeah, it's never good, right? It's never good about that one.
No, because guess what? The bottom of the ladder is grounded.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. And electricity likes to go to ground.
Oh yeah,
folks, in case you don't know.
It takes you right with it.
And it takes you right with it. Yeah, that's called light me up, baby, light me up. This is one that is kind of an interesting one. Don't lean a stepladder against a wall unless it's designed for this purpose. And I know that seems simple, but sometimes, they're really not made to lean up against a wall and climb on. So
yeah, because
I don't know why
they're the way that the bottom is cut, it's made to open up so it sits flat. So you're just sitting on 2 points against the wall. Right. It's like that thing's going to skid out from underneath you.
Exactly. So, again, here's the second one. Don't lean your body beyond the rails, and don't climb down to reposition the ladder. That's one of the other ones. And don't try to attempt to move the ladder while you're on it.
Yeah. And if you're going to use an extension ladder, if you're going to get off the ladder at the top, make sure it's probably about 3 rungs high, or
a good 3 rungs high,
so that you can comfortably get off the ladder and get back on the ladder, coming back down.
Yes.
Like I said, those days for me are long gone.
But they've been there, and we've done that.
And I used to do it all the time on a lower roof, But yeah, not even that anymore. I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah, I still do a little bit of it, but it's really got to be the right pitch, meaning the roof or anything I'm on, it can't be very steep. I don't do steep pitched anything anymore.
your bones, you're not going to mend up like you were when you're about 20. So
I don't even want the thought of it.
I know.
Honestly.
Yeah. I mean, even just thinking about this stuff, I don't really want to.
It gives me the.
Yeah. Anybody want to buy some ladders? I got some ladders to get rid of.
Actually, I do want to make one comment on using a multi-ladder, our multi-ladders. So again, I've been doing my shed, and because of where my shed is, I've been able to use the multi-ladder as more of a platform than I'm using it as a ladder. But the back, it's a long story, folks, but the shed is set in kind of into a hillside. So when trying to get up to the second level on the back, I've actually been setting part of the ladder straight down, and then I have it at a 90-degree angle back onto the ground behind it. And it acts as a platform. And one thing that you can do that with multi-ladders, like on stairwells and things like that, you can do that with a multi-ladder on a stairwell that you can't do it with a traditional ladder. Just make sure that everything is safe. Make sure that it doesn't want to, jump forward and back. That's about the only question I have. I lay one piece against the actual piece that I'm working on or towards like a wall, and then I'll set the platform back. So it does work. Just be aware, pay attention. You'll get it. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, those multi-ladders were a real game changer though for stairwells and things like that. I remember the days of trying to get up in a stairwell without a multi-ladder on
almost
stairs.
Impossible.
That was like the circus act.
Yeah.
And that was some good.
Scary stuff. All right, so let's change tracks, Johnny. It's December now, and
a lot of places already getting their fair share of snow.
Yeah,
I'm talking to you, Buffalo. I'm talking to you, Buffalo. All that lake effect snow in the last couple of weeks has been just real peachy out there. You guys are got to be real happy.
I used to live in that area, Johnny.
Oh,
I know all about that stuff. And I really feel for those people, except for one thing. You chose to stay there, so that's your own problem.
Yeah, you chose to stay there.
But I do follow some of the things, like at the eastern edge of Lake Ontario, there's this thing called the Tug Hill Plateau. And all of the people that live in basically western upstate New York understand what the Tug Hill Plateau is. It is the place in the continental United States where more snow on an annual basis falls than any other place in the country. And what it is the ground rises off of Lake Ontario. I can't remember. I want to say it's something like 1,500 to 2,000 feet up to this plateau. So, and it sits on the eastern end, and the wind goes west to east. And of course, every year the wind blows across Lake Ontario, it picks up all this snow, and it dumps it on the top of the Tug Hill Plateau.
And
the Tug Hill Plateau ends up with something like 80 to 90 inches of snowfall every year, or it could be even more than that. You can Google it and look it up. But it's right now, this last storm, they got 65 inches of snow as of 3 days ago on the Tug Hill Plateau alone. 65 inches, Johnny. That's 5.5 feet. Oh, my God. Blah.
Sucks to be you up there, man. I'll tell you that much.
And I know if you've been watching the news at all that, they're showing places like Erie and things that constantly get pounded with snow.
Yeah.
So our tip is really simple. This is how to make your own ice melt. And this is something if you haven't been to the store and bought ice melt, and you happen to get snowed in, you can take some of these home, just stuff you should have.
Yeah, because I'm sure a lot of people up there, a lot of people in those areas, you're going to be carrying that salt or melt, whatever, bags of that stuff in your trunk.
Well, yeah, but you got to understand those people that live in those areas buy that stuff in July, Johnny, because they know by September 1st it could hit them.
I get it. And it
goes.
You
lived in Chicago, Oh my God. You guys got lots. Did you get lots of lake effect snow? You're kind of on the wrong side of the lake, but
we just got regular snow, Larry. Not it was enough. It was enough. I just saw an article. Who remembers the 1967 event in Chicago? Yeah, I do. You could walk to the roof with the drifts.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was that high. Trees coming down, electricity. Yeah. I mean, 1967 was a high water mark for crappy weather in Chicago. But it was fun for us kids. We had a great tunnel system going.
Yeah.
Igloos and all kinds of stuff.
Kind of cool. I remember doing that as a kid as well. We'd get into some of those big drifts, and they were big, come up over a hill, and there'd be this snow drift that was 6 to 12 feet high, and God, 5 to 6 feet deep.
Taking the dog out, I didn't even know how, the poor animal.
Oh, so there's another tip, and Johnny, this one, right? The old don't eat yellow snow. Yeah, there's a reason, folks. Right.
It gets so bad now that we're on this subject. and we'll drop it here. But it gets so bad that if you're not constantly out there with a snowblower, and at the time it was all of us with snow shovels, that right. Every hour or 2 hours, you weren't going anywhere. I mean, you weren't going down the driveway. I mean, you were inside you were going to be a prisoner in your own home.
It's so funny you should mention that. As I'm reading this article on making your own ice melt, it talked about snow safety issues while shoveling. And one of those factors was regularly shovel the snow during the snowstorm. Don't wait till the end, right? And
I know that?
Yeah, and get out and shovel it on a regular basis. Now, I lived in the country, and we did not shovel our own driveway because it was too long. Thank God. Dad had a 1964 International Scout 4-wheel drive that was pretty interesting. We fired that bad boy up in September and didn't have any brakes, didn't have any floorboards. Hell, it was like driving Fred Flintstone's vehicle, but it did work, and we plow the driveway with that thing, and it was great when we were teenagers because we plowed the driveway and Dad didn't have to do it. But that's how we did it. But because our driveway was really, really long, and anyway, so we didn't have to shovel. But later on in life, when I did move in, I learned that lesson about shoveling regularly.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was. I remember being out at 2 o'clock in the morning. If it's still coming down like crazy, you gotta get rid of it, man.
Got to get rid of it. You got to get it out of the way.
Otherwise, you're not getting it out. I mean,
right.
And then, of course, the snowplow guy comes around and he seals your driveway up. Oh, you son of a bitch.
I know it, right? I just spent 6 hours shoveling.
Yeah. Now I got another mountain at the end of my...
Anyway, back to the tip. The tip is make your own ice melt. Now, this is not a substitute for ice melt or rock salt, right? So this is just something if you kind of get close. And I do want to say this came from the internet. So I would say test this in an area that's not critical, because there's some things about this particular thing after living in cold climates I don't particularly like, but we'll throw it out there anyway. So it says combine 1 teaspoon of dish soap, we would say Dawn, and 1 tablespoon of rubbing alcohol and a half a gallon of water in a bucket. And then pour the water, pour it where you need to get rid of the ice the most. I personally am not big on putting a liquid down for ice melt because it tends, if it's really cold, it's going to freeze. And really cold, meaning single digits, it probably wouldn't be. I'd be careful.
I would be. You guys up there, try this and send us a comment. We run across some things on the internet, and it's like we're not going to try it here in Atlanta, but it's going to be.
Well, we won't have the opportunity to try it.
So we're not gonna have that. So hey, guys up there, try us or give us what you're using.
Yeah. I mean, I always use what do I use today? Calcium chloride? I don't know, whatever the ice melt stuff is.
Yeah, salt. I mean, it's like, it's the problem with salt that I found
kills all the grass.
Well, that too, but you put it on your concrete stoops and stuff, and your concrete gets screwed up.
Yeah, it gets your concrete. It also gets your shoes. If you have leather shoes, it eats your shoes up. So,
and your car's up there too.
And your cars. Oh my God!
What a mess! Just get out of that.
I'm defaulting to my original statement that you've chosen to stay there. Good luck.
All those big salt domes all over the place. Those guys. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's for us living here in the South after living in the North. It's like, would you ever go back?
It all turns to slush.
It's a slush.
And you're walking around and you step out of your car at a restaurant and you step right into a big slush puddle and your shoes are filled with your dress shoes at the time, and everything then turns white as it dries out, and I'm like, oh my God, my socks are son of a bitch, I hate this place.
Yep. Get it, got it. It's been a while, but rather not relive a lot of those experiences if I can help it,
There's a lot to be said about the flooding in Key West. I'll take that and just instead of that. Anyway, sorry, we died. Yeah, so try
right. So
be
try
interested.
This and let us know. Tell us what works for you. Tell us if we're on point with some of the snow removal stuff, because both of us have lived it. We've lived it in the past. We're not doing it too much anymore, thank God. About once a year. Although we're due, Johnny. We're due. We haven't had it in 2 years. Any real snow. Real snow is relative in Atlanta. For you up in snow country, that means
you're already getting it.
Yeah, you got it in the first hour of the lake effect.
No kidding.
You know? But John, I don't know if you've noticed, but one of the things I was just doing in some of my research, or not research, but I was just reading about this snow. I guess the snow must be really pretty wet and heavy. And for those of you that live in those areas, you understand there's fluffy snow and there's wet and heavy snow. And the reason I say it's wet and heavy snow, I was listening to some farmer in Erie, his barn collapsed in it because he just had there was too much snow.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and it's kind of too bad because 4 cows got killed, and the guy he's like, what do I do with my 96 other cattle that I have? But there's something in construction called snow loading that we don't deal with in Atlanta. But if you live in the north, you have to have your house needs to be snow loaded, and because snow can get really, really heavy really, really fast.
I remember guys in those storms, man, getting up on their roof because they're shoveling the roofs off.
Yeah. Yep. And that's happening right now up there. So that must be pretty heavy snow. It must be.
Yeah, I mean, stuff is collapsing everywhere. So
yeah. So anyway, yeah. All right. With that, I don't know. Do we have any other tips, Johnny? You got anything?
No. That's it. Be safe, folks. Be safe on the saws and everything else.
Be safe on the saws. Be safe on the ladders, and make your own ice melt and test it out for us. Let us know how it worked, because I don't know. I'm not big on pouring liquid. Like people used to say, "Oh, pour hot water on it." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's hot water, and then it's going to freeze." And they're like, "Well, yeah, but I'm like, "No, sorry, I'm not doing that." Because every time I did it, of course, I made a sheet of ice.
Right.
So,
right. And there goes Grandma. On the sheet of ice.
Don't talk about the advantages, Johnny.
Yeah. Come on, Grandma's got to get another hip.
Oh, look at you. Broke your neck there.
I'll end the show this way. You guys up in Minnesota, I work for a company up there for 10 years. I used to go to Minneapolis a lot. One thing I noticed about all the older folks up there, every one of you guys had a limp. So it must have been like sliding on the ice, or I don't know what it was, but I just noticed that back then I was walking around in the mall, everybody was limping. I was like, what's going on here?
I don't know. That's a data point. We need to do more research.
Send us a comment. You guys up in Minneapolis, man, send us a comment if that was a correct observation. But every time I used to go up there, I used to notice it. I don't know.
Nobody knows cold like that area. Holy cow, that's cold.
I got stories for that. Anyway,
all right. The spaceship has landed. Do we look at it or we take it apart? Of course, we're going to take that bad boy apart. If you like, please like and subscribe to our shows. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, questions at handymanprosradioshow.com. We do answer them. Johnny, take us home, baby.
All right, folks. Stay safe this week. Take some of these comments to heart about especially on the table saws and the ladders. And man, I'll tell you what, just thinking about that and talking about it. But anyway, stay safe. We'll see you next time on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.